There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of Googling, I have gotten into a maybe later middle age habit at night of just indulging nostalgic whims on YouTube and Google and watching footage of members of the royal family or whatever and just lulling myself into a relaxed state with some historical, literary, audiovisual stimulation just before bed. And this is what happened to me after midnight on Friday night. I discovered an amazing connection to Cole Porter between a first cousin of Eleanor Roosevelt and a first cousin of the princely Italian writer Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa, if I'm not massacring that name. And I'm going to tell you about it. Apropos of Nothing. I don't even remember. I think I was watching some footage of Eleanor Roosevelt on What's My Line. I watched her appearance on What's My Line, and then somehow there was something about Cole Porter, another video, and I got to his Wikipedia page, and oh my god, don't go to his Wikipedia page. Let me tell you, this is an amazing story. I think what set me to Cole Porter's Wikipedia page was thinking he was gay, right? I'm sure he was gay, and so I went to his Wikipedia page, and yes, he was a fairly tortuously closeted gay man, and he was married. And then I just fell into this one paragraph about halfway down the page where he and his wife got married to him with full cognizance of his homosexual lifestyle, and they had lavish parties, and I'm pretty sure she had lovers. Don't know what the gender was, and that's not the point of this video. If this video does have a point, it's not about Cole Porter's wife's sex life. They separated, and she went to Europe, and he was still in the States somewhere, and this is the incident. In 1937, October 24th, 1937, at the Piping Rock Club in Locust Valley, New York. His friends were the Countess Edith di Zappola and Duke Foucault di Verdura. I'm sorry about the pronunciation. I have done my best. I wasn't able to find help for every name. And there was an accident, and his horse, Cole Porter's horse, rolled on him and crushed his legs, and that caused Cole Porter, I didn't know any of this, he was in excruciating pain for the rest of his life. The doctors wanted to amputate both legs, and he refused, and because he refused, he endured 20 years of excruciating pain. His wife came back from Europe, they were reunited, and had their ups and downs. Cole Porter's musical songwriting, musical production career took a massive slump. His only hit, if I understand it, I'm no expert on Cole Porter, and I am preparing this video based pretty much solely on Wikipedia entries. No, a little bit more than Wikipedia entries. So please correct any mistakes, pronunciation or otherwise, in the comment section. But Cole Porter, I think he only had one more hit many years later, and that was Kiss Me Kate, 1948. Porter's wife died in the mid-50s, and his mother died maybe a year or two before or after that. And finally, he had his right leg amputated. And his friend Noel Coward was so hopeful that he would now be able to live a life free of the excruciating pain. But Cole Porter was so ashamed of his being an amputee that he just went into seclusion for the final 6 years of his life. He died in 1964. And I've now finally remembered what it was that took me to the Cole Porter Wikipedia page. It was an interview with Ethel Merman about her friendship with Cole Porter. And I can't remember how I got onto the Ethel Merman. I think maybe Ethel Merman was on. Anyway, I don't know. Doesn't matter. But that's how I got into this, because she talked about her friendship with him at the end of his life, and she was one of his few friends that he would see during those last 2 years of his life when he was an amputee. But he was very depressed by his disability, which is quite a sad ending to a fabulously creative life, to put it mildly.
And I got to know Cole towards the end of his life, in just that 1 year, more than all the years that I had done the shows with him, because towards the end he sort of went into complete isolation in his apartment at the Waldorf Towers. He saw very few people. He never got over the fact that his leg had been amputated, and he had no desire to write. He had no desire to live anymore. He ate very sparingly, very little, never went out except to go to his home in Williamstown and come back, go into the apartment, just have a few people up for dinner, and that's all.
So, those two people that were riding with him when he had that terrible accident with the horse were the cousins of the famous people that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Countess Edith de Zappola was a first cousin of Eleanor Roosevelt, and she married a count. And I'm not going to go too far down in the weeds with her story, but she was a first cousin, maternal cousin, so her mother and Eleanor Roosevelt's mother were sisters. The father's name was Stanley Mortimer. So Edith Mortimer, Eleanor's cousin, married this count. The marriage didn't last, and she had been in a very serious car accident, driving a car with a French soldier in about 1918 or something, during the war, and two people were killed. At least one, maybe two people were killed. I'll put a link to that article. And she was acquitted of any charges, but it was quite a controversial thing that what happened, and was it because she was kind of high society that it was covered up? Don't know. Didn't go too far down into that, but then she was involved or a witness or right there with her friend Cole Porter when he had his terrible accident almost 2 decades later. And then later she and her Italian count were divorced and she married again and whatever. So Eleanor wrote a daily, or was it twice a week or weekly column for the newspaper, and there is one in 1944, I believe, where she met her aunt, Mrs. Stanley Mortimer. Well, that was this countess's mother. And perhaps even more interesting was the other dude, and that is the Duke Foucault di Verdura, who was a first cousin of Lampedusa. So Foucault di Verdura was a gay man, according to his Wikipedia page. It's in Wikipedia, it must be true. Born 1898 in Palermo, died 1978 in London. And he became a famous jeweler and was discovered when Cole Porter introduced him to Coco Chanel. And he opened a salon called Verdura in 1939. He was the last Duke of Verdura. That's a Sicilian dukedom, and he was the last one. And his cousin, I don't know if it's a first cousin, is Giuseppe Lampedusa. Lampedusa is the author of the famous novel The Leopard, which I have never read, but all of this makes me think, okay, this has to go on a fairly short-term TBR. Lampedusa, you probably all knew this, I don't know if I did or not, it didn't really register, was a prince. So how many 20th century novels that are worth reading were written by royalty? This is the only one I know of, so that's another thing I want to do a deep dive on someday. He was the last prince of Lampedusa. Lampedusa died in 1957. He was 60. His novel Il Gattopardo, The Leopard, was published the year after. And it's set in his native Sicily, and it's about the Risorgimento, which is Italian unification. And apparently it's wonderful. I have not read it. I want to that much more. So that is all of the things that kept me awake after midnight on Friday. Am I a wild kind of guy or what?